Hey everyone, today we have Ben Ha from I Can Ask Cheeseburger. How are you doing today, Ben?
Good. How's it going, Neil?
It's going well. So for all of you who don't know about I Can Ask Cheeseburger, it's one of those LOL cat websites. And although you may think they're, funny little cat websites that don't have a business model, they actually do. Ben recently closed a financing round of $30 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's our Series A, first venture round.
Yep. And in addition to that, they're getting around a half a billion, not million, so B with the not a M, but half a billion page views a month. So let's get started. So before you raise that $30 million, you're actually a bootstrap company, right?
Well, we did raise an angel investment. We raised 2.25 million back in September of 2007 to start the business, and we've branched out. So we first thing we did, we bought I Can Ask Cheeseburger. Then we launched a bunch of sites, and then we bought a site called Failblog, and then we launched a bunch more, and then we kept on buying and launching until we got this big.
But when you raise that money, most of that money was used for acquisitions, if I'm not mistaken, and it wasn't necessarily used for traffic growth. You were already building traffic without spending money.
Yeah, so none of I can't comment on the acquisition stuff, but I can tell you that none of our traffic is bought. So it's not uh, advertised. Our system is not. We don't use Google Ads. We don't do anything to spread the company's message other than just letting users tell others.
Bingo, exactly. Yeah, don't really care about the acquisition stuff. More so trying to get at that you're not using money to acquire traffic.
That's right.
Instead, you're building traffic through content.
Correct. I mean, for example, Failblog was a very small website. It was doing about 100, a little over 100,000 pages a day when we bought it, and it's grown to be one of the largest sites on the internet since.
Cool. So what I get at was get the nuts and bolts of how you're actually building traffic through content, right? And you're doing it in a very viral way. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, what makes your content viral?
I think it's the term viral has been overused, and so what I would like to say is that we want to create a playground where people come back every day, right? So we don't really care about the virality of content. We don't really sit there and think about how to track it and how to make things go viral. What we're really interested in is, can we provide enough value every single day that makes us unique that people want to come back? And that's really it. And if they think that the content's unique and the content should be shared, they make it viral. And there's nothing we do that we don't even talk about virality when we talk about content.
So your key is if you provide quality content that people want every single day, you're going to get people to come back and it just builds up your page views over time.
Yeah, and we wanted it to be a reliable place you can go to find whatever made you happy. Like our mission statement is to make the world happy for 5 minutes a day. And so the core there is, if I can be a reliable place where I can take a mental vacation for just a few minutes, then people will come back. So if you're running a personal finance website or a business advice website and you're providing invaluable advice that's unique and interesting every day, your traffic's going to grow. There's no logical reason why people shouldn't come back if you are providing great value.
So other than writing valuable content, what are three tactics that you guys use to grow your traffic?
So we update on a very regular basis, right? So updating on a frequency that people understand lets them plan when they're going to be here. Like if you have a very consistent length, a very consistent schedule, people can actually work themselves around you and say, okay, I know that website takes me about 10 minutes to read. So I'm going to take a 10-minute break and actually I'm going to go read that site because I know that content's going to be awesome every single day. So that's one thing. The second is to actually have a very clear voice. It's very interesting to see how many blogs don't have a unique perspective. I know it's very nice and flattering to have a personal blog that gets popular, but what's really interesting is that people forget that there's billions of bloggers out there, and what they say has to be unique, has to be interesting, has to have a unique perspective. Like it's interesting to watch so many people after Steve Jobs died write the same thing. And if you're going to do that, make it short, like so that I don't waste time reading it and go, well, that's great, that's the same 20 other paragraphs that I read elsewhere. Or make it so that you have a very unique perspective.
Cool. So you have consistency, you have a voice and a unique perspective. What was the third one again?
Well, the third one I would say I didn't tell you, so that's why you don't know that one yet. Um, I'll say what's a good do something you're passionate about. Like if you're not passionate about it, you're just not going to have the energy. Like writing and blogging is such a hard thing to do. I mean, In my personal blog, I don't really update it very often. I update it every few months because I need to be inspired to do so. And I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to turn my personal blog into anything big, but you've got to be passionate about it or else you'll just lose steam. And I see so many people start and get to a decent start. They hit a spike and then they go, yay, and then they try to do many things, but the passion's just not there and they taper off. I see that over and over again.
So one thing you guys actually do that seems to be pretty effective with building traffic is letting users embed pictures, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of your content is picture based. What's the strategy behind the embeds, and how does that actually help you build more and more traffic over time?
So one of the early concessions that we made was that we would allow people to hot link and embed our images, and that would carry our watermark. So this is somewhat controversial. Some people like the watermark, some people don't. And what we decided was that if you're going to have us pay for the bandwidth, we don't. We would like to put our watermark on the image, and that's really worked well for us. So anytime somebody captures an image on our site, we put our watermark. Used our tool, used our system, and so people have actually seen that URL over and over again, and that over time builds some traffic.
Yep, and in addition to that, I believe it builds search engine love as well, right?
Um, yeah, and when people embed image, they'll usually link back to us, and they'll usually link back with organic keywords that target what we're targeting. For us, search engine is not it's not a huge deal because most people are looking for the organic things that we rank for anyway. So the vast majority of searches that we get are for some variation of the names of our sites. So
Got it. So your play actually isn't search traffic, it's getting people to come back every day, and the power of the embeds is just to get the URL and the branding stuck in people's head, which in the long run makes them come back and click through and remember the Icon has Cheeseburger brand or Failblog, which in the long run builds repeat visitors.
that's absolutely correct. We're not here to try to rank for a specific keyword. Chances are, if we're doing our job, we're ranking organically for the keyword for the name of our site well anyway, and usually it's just a matter of time. For example, if you typed in the word fail when Google used to have the I'm feeling lucky button, it took you to Failblog. So like if you ask Google what was the definition of fail, they'll take you to our site, which was pretty awesome. But we never, yeah.
Yeah, so actually going to the fail blog, one thing that I noticed was you guys kill it with YouTube views, right?
Yeah.
And one of the funniest videos that I saw on the fail blog was how a cop pulled over someone and gave them a ticket. They got upset at the cop, so after they got the ticket, they put their car in reverse and just ran over the cop car, right? Like they put it in reverse and their trunk
Yeah.
was on the cop car's hood.
Yeah. And the cop was totally calm. Like, he was freaking out. He was just like, all right, here we go. Like it was pretty amazing. Yeah, so we've done more than 2 billion video impressions since we started, just on YouTube.
What's your strategy to getting more YouTube videos, right? Because everyone has funny videos these days, but having a funny video doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get traffic from YouTube.
Yeah, and to be honest, it has mostly been organic, and there's a lot of channels that imitate what we do, but we're the fifth most watched channel in all of YouTube. And it has to do with quality of content, and that's a high bar, and you got to keep that up. It's a lot of work to make sure that what you post there is funny every single time, and it takes an enormous amount of effort, and we've got a staff of 5 or 6 people whose job is to do that, and we're trying to raise the bar every single time.
So your theory is there's no tricks to get more YouTube views that you guys use. All you do is make sure the content's really good and it's unique and other people don't have anything similar, so in that way the bar keeps on going up.
And you want to take advantage of all the tools that YouTube has, but I think your time is best spent thinking about quality content and how to make yourself unique and different. Like, you want to make sure that you place overlays that link to other videos, that you promote something else at the end, that you have a distinctive style that you use so people recognize it when they see it. I mean, when you see a fail video or some kind of video like that on YouTube, and they'll do the first part as like regular speed and the second part will be slow motion, right? Like we moved to that format, and then we saw everybody else copy that format. It's not rocket science, right? Doing a slow-mo after the initial, regular motion play is not anything clever, but because we started doing that, other people started copying it. Like that's just being distinctive. That's just having a focus and attention on providing value to the end user. And so we want to continue to do that. It's so kind of silly and simple that it's hard to call it innovation, so to speak. But that's what we try here. We try new ideas, and if it doesn't work, we move on.
Cool. So another thing that I noticed with you guys is your content's purely image based. The majority of it on most of your sites are image based. How do you guys actually create good images? I understand a lot of them are user submitted, but what do you look for in images that can make them go viral and bring in a lot of traffic?
So the vast majority of our content is user generated, user submitted. So what we're looking for is something that hits the framework of the site. So we have a very clear idea of as to what we're trying to feature on our site. And we actually talk about a knife point, meaning something that is so simple and sharp about the site that everybody who works here can actually understand it instantly. Like if you tell your friends in non-marketing language what the site is about, they should be able to understand it immediately. So we talk about that knife point. And once you have that knife point nailed down, then we go look at what's in our system that users have submitted that fits that knife point. And we try to reach that knife point. Like for example, we're launching a texting culture, mobile culture website for Failblog, and it'll contain, autocorrect mistakes. It'll have, mobile phone related stuff fails. It'll have stuff related to the iPhone and Steve Jobs. And so what we're trying to figure out is what makes sense for this community, not just what is this tiny little piece of content that we want to actually showcase. We're not interested in the type of media. We're interested in what is it that I like as somebody who understands the mobile culture.
Got it. And can you give me an example of a piece of content you would post that would meet that culture or fit in with it?
Yeah, so for example, one of the pieces of content that went up there is actually a tweet. It's just a funny tweet. The content of the tweet doesn't matter, but it was sent from an iPhone. Now, Twitter is and isn't a mobile culture thing, but it's funny and it has an iPhone element to it, and the joke has to do with the iPhone, so let's post that up, even though it's not really quote unquote a text message.
Cool. So the key, what it sounds like when you're picking out pictures and content for all of your sites is one, it has to fit in with the overall theme. Two, it has to be clear enough where everyone can understand the humor, not a specific type of audience, right? Because some people may understand sarcastic humor and others may not. And then the third one would be it just has to be something that you would want to pass around, right? So it's clear enough where you can tell your friend what it is and it makes sense what the whole site's about.
Yeah, I think the piece of content should be really, really easy to consume. So it's not just for passing around. It's like you as a visitor, who you show up, and in the first 30 seconds, you got to be able to understand what the site's about, right? If I'm confused as to what the site's about, I'm unlikely to come back. I'm unlikely to recommend it. That visit has been wasted. So that clarity in what the site's about has to be very, very clear in the content as well as the navigation, as the site name. All of that has to really fit in. And then after that, what you're looking for is shareable content. And to me, I think focusing on shareable content is not as important as getting that first part down. Like, get a user you already have. Find a connection with that user by being clear as to what value you provide.
One of the strategies that I noticed that you guys are using to get content is user-generated content, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
when users provide good content, you guys post it, and the chances are it's going to go viral, right? Because you're only picking the best of the best. How do you encourage your users to submit more content?
So we get about 15,000 submissions every single day. And the idea is that we want people to understand that when you submit content, you get credit for it. So if you register with us and you upload content and we use it, your name and your user account information, all that stuff, and little trophies appear based on your kind of what you've done on the site. So we absolutely want to encourage people and give them credit for what they provide. And we want to give credit to what other source, maybe it was a friend's Facebook account that we got it from, and we'll link to that if you give us the information. So we want to make sure people feel rewarded for the fact that they participate.
That's actually a smart way because if I submit a piece of content, it gets showcased. I'm going to tell all my friends, hey, check it out. My piece of content got featured on Failblog or
Yeah,
whatever it may be.
that's right. And we email you and let you know that it's going to be up on our homepage. So there's a system of kind of communicating back to the user, giving them feedback about what's going on.
And although you're getting that many submissions a day, I was assuming when you started off you weren't getting nearly as many submissions. How do you encourage, or how did you go from getting little to no submissions to, what, 15,000 a day, I believe you were saying?
Yeah, we I think initially started getting around 300 to 500 submissions every single day, which was a lot. I mean, it was a crap ton of submissions. I mean, it was me, myself, and I had to go through 500 emails every single day with attachments to like look at what's available. Um, it really had to do with the growth of the site and growth of the network. As our traffic grew, because we were known as a user-generated content network, people just started growing with it. The submissions just kept on coming in. What we did was we made sure it was very, very simple. Like it was very easy for us to weed out bad content than it was to discourage bad content from coming in. So we would take in anything, right? As long as we abided by our terms of service, we would look at it and go, we'll make the judgment. We want to make sure it's easy for the users. We want to encourage users to send more and more and more stuff. And then they'll see what goes up and they'll learn and they'll say, oh, okay, maybe if I send them this instead of this other one, it'll do better.
Yeah. Now, I know you're busy, guys, so one last question for you is, one of your growth strategies has been acquisitions. So like you mentioned you acquired the Failblog. And I'm assuming you're not acquiring them for what they're worth now, right? Because they've grown so much.
Sure, yeah.
So what did you specifically look for when you're acquiring these sites? And how'd you go from just saying, hey, this is a site, we're going to pay 1x whatever multiple of revenue or whatever you want to make it. And then how do you go from A, finding them to B, figuring out if it's actually going to be worth buying them, and then the third one would be plugging them into your network to even grow it even more?
So we have a very defined criteria for what we're looking for. We're looking for sites that we can actually migrate into our system very easily. If we can't migrate your system into our system easily, then it actually increases the cost burden on us. So the price has to be lower if it's hard to integrate, right? Because we have to pay that out of our pocket at some point in order to migrate you. So a lot of people make this mistake of wanting to sell a site and then basically trying to get what the value is for the acquirer after it's been integrated. So they'll say, my site has all this potential. Yes, it does, but what buyers do is they don't pay for potential, right? They pay for what it's worth now. Unless you're some strategic asset, meaning that the company cannot live without it, then the company will pay a premium. However, if it's just another asset, if it's another website, you're not going to sell by being difficult, right? And if you keep insisting that the company pays you for what the company would have done to it, like what their value add is, then you're asking to be paid for someone else's work. So we basically say, look, if, here's how it works. We're actually very clear when we try to buy a website about what price we're willing to pay, how we got to that price, what we're going to end up doing with it, and we're pretty upfront about it. And so if people kind of show that they're willing to listen and say, yeah, you know what, I'm willing to strike a fair deal, I'm not here to extract every last penny, then we move forward, right? Because it's just not worth our time to purchase a site where the person's going to be trying to, basically squeeze every penny out of me. It's just not there's plenty of other sites out there.
So now that, let's say, you have acquired it, how do you actually go about growing it? Is it just plugging into your network, or do you do other things to actually grow it?
We do two things. We plug into our network and cross-promote it. We have a lot of sites. We have 55 sites right now. We can actually cross-promote it for the vast majority of them. And second, we change the process. We look at what's on there, what type of content's on there. We see what's worked and what hasn't. We try to get feedback from the community so that we can actually figure out what they want down the road.
So I got two things out of that, in which for the feedback portion, you can do surveys and things of that nature to figure out what they like and what they don't like, as well as looking at stats to figure out what's been popular and what hasn't, and then do more of the popular stuff. And plugging into network is either you plug into existing sites, or if you don't have existing sites, you could potentially hit up other sites in your industry and see if they want to do cross promotions.
Absolutely. You've got a brand new site. You can figure out what other partners there are. You look for people who are somewhat related to your space, but not direct competitors. You do traffic exchanges. You use a Bitly link so that you're sending them the same amount of clicks as they're sending you. These days, that's very easy to do to have a very, very fair trade.
Yeah, and it sounds like you do this by either sidebar stuff or actually embedding within blog posts.
We do actually in the blog post. So we're looking for content from them, and we're looking for them to showcase one of our content. And so we'll exchange the content, and then we'll actually use Bitly links to track how many clicks are being sent from each party.
Got it. And you do link backs, and so it drives traffic to.
That's right. And if you want to be linked to a specific keyword, we try to do that. That's just another value add for SEO. But usually we try to let them organically decide how they would link to us.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing the interview, and best of luck with everything at I Can Has Cheeseburger or Pet Holdings Inc.
Thanks, Neil.
Bye.